The government's chief climate change advisor has urged Australians to look past political slogans and back the carbon tax. But in Parliament, Ross Garnaut's pleas were ignored as debate boiled over between the opposition and the government. Political correspondent Tommy Gooden reports from Canberra.
The battle for the final design of the carbon tax is nearing its endgame.
Here's my report. Thank you very much.
The government's climate change advisor sees it like this.
It's a struggle between the influence of vested interests on policy and the influence of the national interest.
The government's carbon tax, he says, is the most difficult policy reform ever undertaken, with some in business and the opposition playing the role of spoiler. Despite the fight, he believes the country will back the government's tough decision.
I don't accept that my country is a pissant country.
And he directly criticised Tony Abbott's alternative policy.
Reliance on regulatory approaches and direct action for reducing carbon emissions is likely to be immensely more expensive than a market economy. Thank you very much.
A veteran of Canberra's political battles, he's concerned that a serious debate's been squeezed out of the climate change argument.
People are more comfortable with shouting ignorant slogans than I think they were in the old political culture before 1983.
Are there any questions? The Leader of the Opposition.
Soon after, it was on to question time, where the opposition leader seized on a section of the report saying families would face increased costs because of the tax.
Given that the Prime Minister has been caught out yet again, this time by her own report, how can anyone believe anything that this Prime Minister says?
Order.
Just because you bellow things doesn't make them right.
And in fact, Professor Garnaut provided more details about how the tax would work, especially in reimbursing families who lose out through higher costs. He's suggesting a starting price of $26 a tonne, which will raise more than $11 billion in the first year. A third of that new revenue would go to some of those businesses who've been lobbying the government to protect them from the tax. Another 10% would go to research into renewable energy, and low and middle income households would get the rest. His plan for the system to be overseen by 3 regulators, including a Reserve Bank-style carbon bank that would set the future carbon price, brought another attack from Tony Abbott.
What Professor Garnaut is recommending is that our climate change targets, and by clear implication the tax rate, will be set by unelected, unaccountable people.
And speaking of accountability, minority government arrangements were put to the test in question time when the independents sided with the opposition to block a move by the Speaker of the House to eject an unruly Liberal frontbencher, despite the fact he'd already been warned to stop interjecting. The move rattled the Speaker. It's extremely rare for his authority to be questioned.
After question time, I will be taking the time to consider my position.
But a crisis was averted when the opposition leader stepped in.
The Leader of the Opposition.
Mr Speaker, I move that this House has confidence in your speakership.
Order. Order.
The government also felt moved to support the Speaker.
I thank the Leader of the Opposition for moving this motion, and I am very pleased to second it.
The price of a testy debate that's still got a course to run yet. Tommy Gooden, Lateline.